Liam Rosenior is no longer at Chelsea Football Club. It is a new era under a new manager again. Welcome back to From the Shed End. Welcome back. Theo, how you doing first of all? How's things?
Yeah, all good, all good. To think back in December 2024, we were chanting, "We've got our Chelsea back," and now I think it was Southampton away under Maresca, and now we're thinking to ourselves, where do we go from here with this club? But like I always say, football aside, I'm good. Really, really sunny week in London here, blue skies. So looking forward to a day out on to Wembley on Sunday. And to anyone who's running the London Marathon, it looks like they're going to have really nice weather. It might even be a bit too warm for any runners on Sunday.
Yeah.
But how are you doing?
Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good. Busy weekend coming up. Busy weekend. A lot of driving this weekend. So yeah, lots of I haven't had any coffee whilst we're recording this, but there will be large amounts of caffeine consumed in the next 2 to 3 hours. But no, I'm good. Like you, weather's good. I know a couple of people running the London Marathon, so good luck to them as well. I know, like you just said, the weather's good if you're a bystander watching. Probably not if you're doing a 3 hour, to 4 hour race. But no, I'm good. Obviously, it's a bit of a mixed emotions around Chelsea because obviously, I mean, I put out some videos this week where I think if I checked my blood pressure, it would have been through the roof. Especially before the Brighton game, after the Brighton game, comments that were made after Liam Rosenior, which we'll get into. But it feels like this was the right call from BlueCo to relieve Liam Rosenior of his duties as head coach at Chelsea. It seems like it was the right move. Um, just didn't work out. 100 and I mean, I think he's one of the lowest the manager's time spent at Chelsea. He's probably there. I think he's second from bottom. He's second from bottom in points per game. It just didn't work for Liam Rosina. What do you think went wrong?
Yeah, I mean, he was gone as soon as he gave that post-match interview after the Brighton game. He threw the players under the bus. I think Chalobah as well. What he said kind of just didn't really go down well either with Rosenior. But yeah, it just really didn't work out. I mean, let's start out with Liam Rosenior because for me on the surface, this just looks like another ruthless Chelsea decision. But in
Mm,
reality, it's a lot more layered, in
yeah,
my opinion, because like you said, he's gone just over, I think, 100 days, which is wild even by Chelsea standards. I think even Potter, maybe potentially even Avram Grant or Scolari, they were given more time, Vilas Boas as well. And yes, the results were bad. I mean, I think we spoke about this at length in previous recordings, but 5 straight defeats without scoring. That's the first time since 1912 since that's happened. That's the
mm,
year the Titanic sank, which is absolutely mind blowing and really heavy European losses, 8-2 on aggregate to PSG, which is a team in other seasons we'd be going head to head with in the Champions League. But I think purely focusing on results, I think we might miss the bigger issue here with Rosenior and what's happening at Chelsea Football Club.
mm,
Because, like, similarly to Potter, similarly to Vilas Boas, this is a manager who actually started off quite well. There were signs of identity, a bit of structure. There was a clear idea. But what we saw again is what keeps happening at Chelsea Football Club is that the environment around them, in my opinion, just swallows the manager before they even is a bit of a project or any chance for things to stabilize. And there were reports. I think you spoke about it, or you sent it to me offline, that there was a bit of a dressing room disconnect. I think with Enzo Fernandez, Cucurella,
yeah,
with everything that happened on the international break, disciplinary issues as well with red cards and players maybe like Garnacho, and even potential team news leaks with what happened. I think before the PSG game and what happened ahead of the Brighton game with Cucurella's barber, I think leaking the team
yeah,
news as well.
yeah,
And that tells you something, in my opinion. It's not just that Rosenior lost the dressing room; it's that he never really fully had control of it. I think from day one, sure, he was saying all the right things in his kind of pre-match, in his initial conferences, how he was saying that pressures a privilege, and that he's honoured to be at Chelsea Football Club, and how he's working with some world-class players. But that brings us to the bigger point, which for me is Chelsea's model. We've criticized it at length on this podcast because if you zoom out, it's not just about one manager failing. It's about a club that spent over £1 billion and is
mm,
constantly being reshaped around the squad and is still trying to figure out what it actually is. And it was a really interesting. I was listening to it was an emergency podcast Gary Lineker and Alan Shearer
yeah.
recorded
Watched it.
yesterday about what's kind of happening at Chelsea, and they really dig into all the financial numbers, which are actually really really scary,
Yeah,
really really
we've
scary when
done.
you
There's a
think about
video of
it.
ours on here as well. It's
Yeah,
it's it's 700 million that has to be paid back by July 2027, which is growing interest. The other loan which is the Bank of America loan, I think, or the JP Morgan. That I think is accruing massive. I think the total consolidated amount that's due to be paid is over 1 billion. So we're talking about vast amounts of
Mental.
funds that we don't have.
It's shocking. I mean, we're buying so aggressively, we're also selling aggressively. It's almost like a trading operation. And it's
Mm,
not just about squad building, it's also asset management to a certain extent. And that's what these owners kind of were bought in to do. They're equity guys, they're not football owners. And to a point, this is really, really risky because if results don't come like it's happened this season, player values drop like Palmer, Caicedo, Enzo Fernandez. And if we don't
yeah,
get any Champions League money, which completely disappears, suddenly this whole system becomes a lot more fragile.
yeah,
And that's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing a disconnect between the scale of spending that's happening on the pitch. Fans are frustrated, managers are under pressure, and this cycle just keeps rinsing and repeating. It happened with Potter. It happened with Lampard. Even when he came as interim, I know we posted it on our socials. He saw what was happening behind the scenes. He was saying that the standards have really dropped at the football club. And then we saw it with Pochettino, who actually people forget he never actually got fired. I think he walked away from the job
yeah,
himself at the end of the season. And then even Maresca negotiating with Man City and saying he was the toughest 48 hours of his managerial career. And even though results kind of were a bit shaky come that December period, he was never going to kind of stay until the end of the season. I reckon. I think his relationship was completely broken with the owners,
yeah.
and the writing was on the wall quite early on. But now it's serious time that we start looking at these sporting directors, Stewart and Winstanley, because it's all good, blaming the manager, wanting the manager out. But when are they going to take responsibility for what's happening at this football club?
Mm. Yeah, it's true. It's true. I think a lot of it. We have to remember who is s- not solely in charge, but has a very big say on who comes in as the head coach or the manager. It's the sporting directors, and they've failed on four separate occasions to bring in a permanent manager that is able to deal and cope with not just the pressures of the job, but also improve the squad, improve the quality of the players, get them through the next ceiling of their own careers. So none of the managers that you've just reeled off have been able to do that, and that's partially not because they're not good coaches. Because if we put it on paper, Liam Rosenior is not a bad coach. I probably slated him more than many this week, but if you look at it on the grand scheme of things, he's a very good coach. He was just thrown into the lions den too early, too quickly. He shouldn't have happened. I said it on probably numerous occasions. He was out of his depth. It was almost like a challenge that you're going to lose before you've started it. And this is what takes me back to the point of why did he take the job on? I know he's at Strasbourg, the sister company, and I know that there's a lot of people saying that he didn't have a choice but to take it, because what else is he going to do? But you're contracted to Strasbourg, so unless they're going to sack you for, I don't know, poor performance when they were sitting in the Europa League or the European football somewhere, and you were also quite mid-table in the league, so I can't base it on form. Do you get rid of him because you want to just bring in Gary O'Neill, or you want to bring in Felipe Luis? You can't just get rid of him. So he didn't, like I said in the week, if he really generally felt he was, and he obviously believes he's a top coach because he's took the job on, and some of the comments he's made throughout his time at Chelsea would make you think he thinks he's a good coach. Those sort of jobs at Chelsea are going to come back round for him, and that's where I think he probably got lost a little bit, maybe with the ego, because I think he did that. He ended up with a bit of a, I don't want to say an ego, but he definitely felt like he was at war at times with the press, and having to come out and defend himself and say it's not an excuse, but actually it is an excuse. And I think those moments probably didn't help him at all. And I think I generally think for Liam Rosina, before we move on to who's probably next, I think this will be a hard mountain to climb back up again. What do you think? Do you think he's probably tarnished his CV a little bit by going and doing this job, similar to Graham Potter, where he was on a good run at Brighton, and then suddenly he's had a bad stint at West Ham. I think he's at Sweden now, isn't he? I think so. Um, did you think it's kind of that the steps that Liam Rosina might have to take to get his career back on track?
I mean, for me, he was just put in a really hard situation from the off because he's offered the Chelsea job. If he turns that down, he's kind of seen as a bit of a coward, and maybe BlueCo will never come back towards him to kind of offer him that position again. And then at the same time, if he takes the Chelsea job, like you said, he's thrown into the lines then so early on in his young managerial career. He's only got experience managing Hull City, Derby County, and Strasbourg, and the expectations are a lot different at Chelsea compared to those clubs. But at the same time, I just feel like all of the managers we've hired across our years, we've never hired someone with such little experience as Liam Rosenior.
Yeah.
Even Maresca, what he's managed in Italy, he's managed in England before. He won the championship as well. Potter as well. He did good things at Brighton. But yeah, I think now it's going to be very difficult for him. Similarly to what Potter did, similarly to what Lampard did, he might need to take a step down now, maybe managing the championship like he did previously,
Mhm.
maybe manage abroad again. But from a Premier League perspective, I can't really see a club that's going to maybe look at him and thinking, yeah, he's a good candidate to manage our football team.
Yeah, I think it's yeah, I mean I get why people might say that he didn't have a choice, but I just think look what it ultimately has ended up at, and you reeled off some really top you know managers in there. Maurizio Pochettino, Graham Potter's got Premier League experience. Enzo Maresca just won the championship, so they all had arguably better CVs than Liam Rosenior, and all three of those managers. Well, let's take Lampard out there because I think he's been actually quite successful. He kept Everton out of a relegation and also has got Coventry promoted, and he was only on an interim basis. But those other three managers all failed at Chelsea. All three of them. Let's add Thomas Tuchel to that because he won the Champions League under Roman, and then suddenly he was out the door, one of the first out the door when the new ownership came in. So I think hopefully this is a sort of sign for Liam Rosenior that you don't have to go from A to Z. You can do all the other letters in between it and just take your time. He's a young manager, he's a young coach, so he's got plenty of time. But obviously one door shuts, another one opens because Callum McFarlane's now back in charge for the remainder of the fixtures this season. That starts with the FA Cup semi-final Wembley this weekend against Leeds. Mixed reaction across the fan base when that was announced because I think a lot of people thought we would do maybe what Man United have done and bring in someone a bit more, a bit more of a better CV in terms of like Michael Carrick at Manchester United. But we haven't. We've gone back to type A or type B, if you want to call it that, with Callum McFarlane. One draw. I think he lost to Fulham, I think, if I remember correctly as
Mm.
well. Early sending off in that game. But do you think this is probably just to steady the ship until the end of the season, buys the owners a bit of time to get this next appointment right, which is what they're trying to say. They're learning from lessons that they've made in the past that have gone wrong.
Absolutely. I think they don't want to rush into things with only 5, 6 games left to go in the season. And McFarlane has that experience having managed those 2 games against City and Fulham back in January. He knows a few of the players. And if I'm not mistaken, he also was part of Rosenior's coaching staff with the first team
Yeah.
as well. I mean, personally, I would have given it to John Terry until the end of the season. He knows the club. He bleeds blue. He's very kind of vocal around on social media. He knows what it means to represent that badge as well. And I think he can definitely get this broken dressing room back to getting results on the pitch, especially with a really important game on Sunday. I think he can just give us that momentum and that boost and that feel good factor we need.
Yeah.
But I also feel like you pointed out numerous times, I think there's a broken relationship between him and the owners as well. I don't think they fully see eye to eye, and I don't really like how vocal he's been on TikTok and Twitter. Um, it could also be that one of the candidates we're being heavily linked to is only going to be out of the job come the end of the season in Iraola, who's
Yeah.
going to leave Bournemouth at the end of the season, and his name has been heavily linked with Chelsea. That being said, I think he's also holding off to be the manager of Athletic Club in Bilbao. He's from the Basque region. He played countless years as a player there. So I think he maybe wants to have that nostalgic kind of reunion with his boyhood club. But maybe if Chelsea come calling, he's settled in England. He wants the London life. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe he wants to have another kind of adventure in the Premier League.
Mm.
A lot of the other names, I know you're going to maybe list a few of the other names, but Filipe Luis, Cesc Fabregas, I think Nagelsmann's name's being linked again. These are the type of names that I quite like because they offer a lot more experience than Liam Rosenior. They have got a bit more European pedigree as well. Um, and to be fair, anyone after Liam Rosenior feels a bit more experienced. Even I think Marco Silva's name's being linked. And right now,
Yeah.
you'd happily take Marco Silva after what happened with Liam Rosenior. But is there a particular candidate you're most keen on, or kind of you feel like his name might hear more of in the coming days as well?
I think obviously the one that stands out is Andoni Iraola. I think he's obviously the one that's in the Premier League. I actually like his football as well. I think his football
Mm.
is actually really good. He's adaptable. I know we said a lot of these things about Maresca and even to an extent probably Rosenior before he got here, but I do feel like he plays sort of that modern, aggressive, sort of front-footed football. He gets the maximum, I'd say, probably about out of some of his underperforming players as well. So I think he's probably the better fit out of all of those candidates. And obviously, there's no cost element to bringing him, no compensation package to pay to Bournemouth. Marco Silva, I could see it happening because I think he's on the verge of leaving Fulham, isn't he, as well? So I think he could come. I'd like it to be someone who's prem proven, and by that I don't mean they've just managed in the Premier League. I feel like Oliver Glasner, another one who, is sort of there or thereabouts. Crystal Palace has won, I think he won the Europa League at Frankfurt and he's won the FA Cup at Crystal Palace. So he's got a bit about him. He knows. My only worry with Glasner is he's very vocal in his press. He's not shy of coming forward. So I think he would probably struggle with BlueCo if things didn't go his way, or if, a player was sold that he wanted to keep, very similar to, the Elise situation. But those are the top three for me. I like Filipe Luis, but again, I don't know if, look, I don't know if for me, I don't know if he'd be the right fit for what we currently need right now in terms of steadying the ship, getting the best out of a young squad. Um, yeah, I just don't know. And I always think BlueCo wanted him, didn't they, not too long ago? And I always think the managers that they want have never been successful. So I always have to raise a bit of an eyebrow to why did they want him? What do they see in him? Is it the data that they're going towards that's leaning towards that appointment? But for me, definitely Glasner. I think Iraola would be the two top of my list.
Yeah, it's a good shout with Glasner. Personally, I love Cesc Fabregas. I'm a huge fan of him. I think his football IQ is absolutely brilliant, both as a player and a manager. But also, I love him so much that I don't want him anywhere near this club.
Yeah, I was about to
Because
say
I
you don't
think,
want him anywhere
yeah,
near it.
no, because I just know he's doing such a good job at Como. Let him stay there. Let them maybe get into the Champions League. Let him manage in the Champions League. But to bring him into the circus right now, I think it would just, like you said, almost tarnish his legacy, like he's done
Yeah.
with, like we've done with Rosenior, and potentially he would grow to hate the club. And I don't mind the Filipe Luis shouts. I watched a bit of Flamengo in the Brazilian league, and he beat Palmeiras in the Libertadores final back in December, which is the biggest achievement you can kind of achieve as a footballer and a manager in South America. And he did that with a very young, talented Flamengo squad. And I think that's potentially why the owners wanted to bring him in, but not just for, it wasn't for Chelsea at the time; it was for Strasbourg.
Yeah.
So it's whether now he swallows they swallow a bit of pride, and they get him back on the phone and try to bring him to Chelsea this time. Xabi Alonso, I think, is another name that's being linked as well.
I think he's destined for the Liverpool postcodes somewhere. I think he's I'll be surprised unless Slot stays, and even then, I don't know if Alonso's. I know people are going to say Bundesliga. I think he go invincible with them. I think he did, didn't he? I think in the end.
He did, yes.
So yeah, people are going to say Alonso, but I mean, look how the squad that he had at Real Madrid, and he wasn't really. I know he had egos there. You've got Mbappe, he's one of the biggest, but he didn't do that well. And again, I would rather lean towards the Prem proven, someone who's had a bit of time to understand the league a little bit. And then once you've steadied the ship, go and get yourself your marquee manager that you want to bring in. I don't think that's going to be a Glasner or Iraola, but I think go and get someone the next big, try and aim for a Xabi Alonso then, or someone out of that sort of level. But yeah, I would like to see someone who's been in the Premier League and has had to deal with difficult situations. And I think that is one of those two that's already in the Prem, for me anyway, personally.
I'd agree. I've got my answer to this question, but if you were them, would you wait until after the World Cup to see if any managers from international teams become free?
Possibly. But then I also think you want the new coach or manager to come in as soon as possible, get their feet under the table, assess what they probably need in terms of transfer, whether that's a transfer strategy or, do you assess who's out on loan? Do you get rid of certain players that you don't really want to work with? So I would want to see him come in as early as possible. I mean, there's another name that we haven't mentioned, and he does apparently still have a house 10 minutes from Stamford Bridge, which is Jose Mourinho, who
I was going to say, I was about to mention his name. Yeah,
he's apparently looking to leave Benfica in the next couple of weeks after the season. So I think there's enough managers out there that could hopefully do a good job at Chelsea with the current squad, bring in a bit of, as we've said on here many times before, leadership, bit of quality. Those sort of players, bring those in so they can work with a bit of quality plus the youngsters. I think there's enough managers that we've currently got available on a short list that we could pick from. But I'm trying to think, well, in terms of World Cup, who we might probably go for in terms of which
Yeah,
managers. I can't really.
I
No one's Ancelotti again after Brazil. I don't know.
I think he might have even extended Ancelotti or kind of
Okay.
committed that he'd stay beyond the World Cup. I think the big name is Didier Deschamps from the France team, who I think is looking maybe to leave, and I think Zidane's the front runner to replace him with the French national team. But again, does he have that Prem experience? Is he more of an international team
Exactly.
manager? Mourinho is, I mean, it's a good shout, but Mourinho with these owners, I think, is a recipe for disaster.
I was
And
gonna say that though, but do you think he's calmed down a little bit? I mean, I know he still has his moments, and but do you
we've
think?
seen that this season with the whole Vinicius Prestiani situation. I feel like
Yeah.
he can kind of upset some fans, rattle them, and it's quite interesting 'cause I think his name is actually one of the front runners to take the Madrid job.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
which
Ironically.
ironically, yeah, after everything that's happened this season. Um, but yeah, I think to have him come back for a third season would be a crazy kind of a football story,
I feel
and
like.
also
Do you not think though he's kind of at the age where not that he knows his place, he's always been that spoken, the special one, but he almost he's just here because it's local. You know,
yeah,
he can walk to Stamford Bridge, he can walk home, you know, he can drive to Cobham, do the training. Um, you know, he's back in London. Is it not just a sort of last paycheck, keep my mouth shut? Like in certain jobs you see like the oldest person in the job and they're just there like waiting for retirement. Is he treat it a bit like that where you're just here for another 2 seasons and then just
yeah.
retire on a high? And I think he would want to come back and just maybe he was done the Benfica thing, which is what I think he said he wanted to do. He wanted to manage there, but come back to Chelsea for one last stint. Bring Thiago Silva with him. Recruit John Terry as the coaching staff. I mean, that if that doesn't sound ideal, I don't know what does.
Yeah, I mean, from like I like to romanticize about the past, and it would be a match made in heaven with Chelsea and Mourinho coming back. But also you look at Mourinho and his CV; he never really stays more than 2-3 years at a club. His tenures are very very short, and his last few clubs: Benfica, Fenerbahce, Roma. No disrespect to those clubs, but it's a bit of a downgrade to when he used to be managing Inter Milan, Chelsea, Real Madrid.
Yeah.
So maybe he's just taken a bit of a step down and he's adjusted to maybe fighting now for top four. Was actually what we're doing as a
Well,
club as well
this is
now.
this is my point. It's not
Yeah,
like we're pushing for
yeah,
the Premier League or we're trying to push for, winning the Champions League. Right now, we just need a manager that has been there and done that to try and get the best out of a squad that clearly is struggling and lacks the quality and depth to get to that level. And
mm,
when I say this again, I'm being genuinely serious. I wouldn't rule out Jose Mourinho because I think
no,
he's again, no disrespect to the clubs you mentioned in terms of Roma, Fenerbahce, and Benfica, but he's at that level now, and so are we. We're not in that sort of Man City, Liverpool, Arsenal sort of area of the league anymore. We are pushing. I mean, this weekend we could drop down to probably propping up the top half of the table. So it tells you where we are as a team. I don't think this is a job he would turn his nose up at if the
no.
deal was right for him.
And we've got to be realistic now as Chelsea fans as well, because some people might say, let's get Jurgen Klopp, let's get Pep Guardiola, who's might be leaving Man City. But why would these managers want to come to
It's a
Chelsea,
downgrade.
given the situation? We're not going to get Champions League football. So
Yeah.
we have to be realistic. And I think someone like Iraola, someone potentially like Filipe Luis, these are realistic names because they'd be staying in the Premier League or coming to the Premier League. They'd be living in London, managing Chelsea. Their ambitions and their kind of targets are quite similar to maybe what they were doing with Flamengo and Bournemouth. So yeah, we've got to be realistic now as Chelsea fans. We're not going to attract a world class manager or
Mm.
world class in terms of what we're used to, but we also can't settle for mediocrity like a Rosenior. So I
Yeah.
think Iraola for me is the front runner for the job.
Yeah, it's definitely got to be up there. I just wanted to mention as well because it was obviously I think we spoke about it offline, but it's very damning to see hardly any of the current Chelsea players come out and after a sacking you usually see one or two first. The trickle effect of players coming out and thanking the head coach or thanking the manager that's just currently been sacked for their time, for their help, for putting their arm around them during hard times or whatever. But there's been very few, if any, players that obviously Reece James you'd expect would come out. Enzo Fernandez is another, vice captain. Caicedo. No one's come out and said anything about Liam Rosenior. So, do you think that's a concern, or do you reckon that's also something that the new manager's going to have to try and get on board with very quickly and get some of these players out of a dark space in their career?
Absolutely. I think even you look back at that Pochettino season, I think Jackson, Palmer, Cucurella, they all put
Yeah.
big Instagram posts up to thank him for his time at Chelsea. But in this case, we haven't really seen anything from a Chelsea player posted on Instagram or Twitter since the sacking. I think the players are also reading the room slightly. They know the fans have been very upset. We saw the full-time scenes at the Amex Stadium on Tuesday night. It was quite damning to see some. I think Enzo Fernandez just almost looked completely broken, staring at the fans. And then we also see some former players like Drogba and Mason Mount liking BlueCo out posts and content
Yeah.
on Instagram as well. So yeah, I think just right now they want to maybe bring a bit more stability, and the new manager is going to need to bring a bit more stability before they can maybe start posting on Instagram, because the fans right now, I think the atmosphere at Stamford Bridge is very toxic, and I think the players just don't want to get involved in that right now either.
Mm. So yeah, maybe it's a good point. I didn't think of it that way, but yeah, I do think it's a bit. You could even turn your comments off. Do you know what I mean? You could just say put a post up and just turn the comments off so no one can reply. But yeah, you're probably right. It's more about reading the room, the situation that they're in. Protest happened, only less than a week ago, so maybe you're right there. But Callum McFarlane. Let's move on very quickly. I mean, there's obviously he's in now. We've got to see what he can do and trust him. He's coming. I agree with you though. John Terry with all the badges, all the qualifications, all the experience he's had under Dean Smith and Villa, Leicester. I do question whether John Terry needs to move on out of Chelsea and go somewhere else, go and get a job in League Two, League One, go and do what Ashley Cole's doing at the moment. But Callum McFarlane's in charge. Don't know if he's done his press conference as we're recording this. I'm assuming it's going to be today or at some point tomorrow. But how do you think he's going to handle the pressure? Because he's coming into a completely different situation to the last time when he was here, when Enzo Maresca was sacked or walked away from the job. He's coming into a completely different situation. The fans are, like you said, a very more toxic environment than it was, 4 or 5 months ago. How is he going to handle that pressure? How does he get the best out of his team in a big game FA Cup semi final, which is literally what our season's riding on for the next couple of weeks?
We've got to hope as fans, and he's got to hope that there's a bit of a bounce in terms of a new manager coming in, maybe a bit of a change of tactics, maybe some new faces in the starting 11 that might not have played as regularly, maybe an Andre Santos and Ashampong, these type of players. But also some of the players also kind of hold themselves accountable and also perform on the pitch,
Mm.
because not a single goal scored in the Premier League since the 4th of March. We're almost approaching 2 months of football, league football, and we haven't scored a single goal. So I think Rosenior has got to kind of McFarlane's got to obviously improve things defensively, because we've conceded bucket loads of goals
Yeah.
in recent games. But I think we've got to get the likes of Delap, Joao Pedro Neto, Garnacho, even Cole Palmer. We've got to get these guys confident and in good scoring form, because the last thing we want is to be knocked out the FA Cup against Leeds. I mean, any maybe younger Chelsea fan listening to this, we've got such a rivalry with Leeds that stems back to the 1960s and 1970s, historic two-legged FA Cup final. So yeah, I think me going to that game, I just don't want to be walking back to Wembley Station, down Wembley Way, having been knocked out the FA Cup semi-finals to Leeds. And our luck at Wembley has not been great. I think we lost in the semi-finals in 2024.
Yeah.
We lost in the Carabao Cup final in 2024 as well. We lost the FA Cup final 3 seasons in a row in 2022, 2021, and 2020. So yeah, I mean, Chelsea fans, we used to, call Wembley our second home, but right now it's almost like a cursed ground for us. So
Yeah.
we've really got to hope that McFarlane and the players kind of get their act together ahead of Sunday.
Yeah. It's I mean I think we played them a couple of years ago. I think it was 3-2, wasn't it? When in one of the
Yes,
rounds of the
yeah.
FA Cup. And I think that was a late goal. I'm gonna
Gallagher, I
I'm gonna
think
say
scored.
Gallagher,
Yeah,
wasn't it? I think it was a
yeah.
very late goal. So Leeds are in good form. Let's not let's as much as I hate to do this as the rivalry that you've just mentioned, but Leeds are in brilliant form. We're on the down spiral of chaos. No goal, like you said. 5 games on the bounce. We didn't register a shot on target, I think, against Brighton in the week as well. So these things have to change, and I'd like to think Callum McFarlane tactically. And I don't want wholesale changes, but I think tactically, I mean, no 5 at the back. I mean, Leeds are a good team attacking wise, but 5 at the back was crazy against Brighton. So I just think tactically there has to be change. There has to be something that he changes in this team. I'll be honest, I don't want to see Liam Delap. And I'd love to think against FA Cup semi-final, this is never going to happen, but utilize the squad. If that means you've got to bring some of the younger players that are in the development squad onto the bench and bring them into that game, you're going to have to do that, because I worry about the likes of Garnacho. I worry about the likes of Cole Palmer, who, we need a separate episode just to talk about him and how he's not performed this season. But hopefully João Pedro's back. We don't know if he's fit. I think he would have to slot straight back into the team. Um, I think we have to back Callum McFarlane. As much as we probably don't all agree with the decision that's been made, I think we have to back him, like we did with Rosenior, Maresca, and other managers. Um, it starts with Leeds, and that is going to be a massive game. And like you said, our record at Wembley is not great. So, yeah, I'm concerned. I'm very concerned.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to the game at all. 3 p.m. on Sunday, I think, isn't it? So, not looking forward to that at all.
No, and we saw some good things from McFarlane at the Etihad in the second half, especially I think when Enzo snatched the late winner, and even when we went down to 10 men against Fulham, we were still well in that game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's there's certain players you mentioned like Palmer, like Garnacho, that look like a shadow of themselves right now, and they look really low on confidence as well. And if it means bringing in a Sanchez, yeah, actually he made some big saves, to be fair on him, against Brighton, but he also had a bit of a brain fart moment as well. But if it means McFarlane bringing in a Jesse Derry, a Shim Maheka, a Reggie Walsh, I'm all for that right now. I'm all for that, and it actually might mean that some of these, players that deem themselves world class might actually think to themselves, okay, there is a chance that I'm not actually seen as a first team player now. I need to fight for my position in the starting lineup. So yeah, I think he's definitely got to do that. But at the same time, I also read that Rosenior dropping Enzo Fernandez for 2 games didn't go down well with the first team as well. So I think McFarlane's got to kind of be quite sensible with which players he picks and maybe which players he drops.
Yeah, and we have to remember we've got a lot of injuries. I mean, Esteval's injury is big.
Gutted for him.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to miss the World Cup. I mean, I'd be very surprised if he makes it. It's like a really bad tear, and some of those can take 6 to 8 weeks. You're talking a long period out whilst he's out. So, do you think that's down to training regime? I know a lot of people on social media have obviously noticed the obvious of the weight gain slightly in terms of his physique when he joined the club as to what he looks like now. So, do you reckon that's just more dietary in terms of what the club are probably asking him to do, muscle conditioning, and just overran on a training pitch? You reckon that's what it's come down to?
I think certainly. I think it also could be he's still adapting to the physicality of the English game.
Yeah.
But from what I read, Rosenior's training sessions were a lot more kind of sprint focused rather than work with the ball at times. And maybe Esteval just almost was overworked, similarly to Palmer. And we're seeing a lot of hamstring injuries right now. I think Gittins as well was a hamstring. Esteval was a hamstring.
Yeah.
I think even João Pedro, to a certain extent, might be a hamstring right now. And I'm absolutely gutted for him. I think he was going into that World Cup as almost the star boy of Brazil, and could have really I know he's already done this back home in Brazil and in the Premier League, but he could have really kind of shown the world what he's capable of doing on one of the biggest stages of world football.
Yeah.
And now that he's potentially missing the World Cup, I'm absolutely gutted for him, especially being so young and so talented. We saw, I think Lamine Yamal as well get injured with a hamstring the other day. So it's like a kind of part of the season now where these players are dropping like flies, which is, your star players. You want to play them with this crunch time of the season, but also you want to wrap them up in cotton wool at the same time.
Yeah, 100%. It's an important game for us. Obviously, he won't be part of that, but like you said, the World Cup's around the corner. So in the back of the players' minds, they must be thinking, I don't want to pick up an injury now. I think Jared Branthwaite, another one at Everton recently, is out. He's out the World Cup. So there's a lot probably riding for some of these players, making sure they get to the World Cup in a couple of months' time. But just in terms of predicted lineup for Leeds now. It's going to be tricky, isn't it? Because I feel like with this, does your lineup pick itself? I suppose is the question.
Not really, because it's a new manager. There's still question marks on certain players' fitness. So I think we'll get an update on that from McFarlane later. But obviously, if the likes of João Pedro, they're fit, I think he's got to start. And there's certain players, like I said, really important players, or have been really important for us, that just haven't really been pulling their weight recently. So do you drop them for this game? Do you play them?
Yeah.
Personally, I would go with Sanchez, Cucurella, Fofana. I've gone for Tosin countless times since Chalobah's injury, and Chalobah didn't really cover himself up in glory against Brighton. I felt the same thing with Hato, so I would go with Tosin and Fofana. Then I'd stick with Gusto right back. Actually, no, I'm
Yeah.
going to go with Champong right
Okay.
back. Then I'd go with Andre Santos and Caicedo as the centre mids, Enzo in the 10. I would go with Jesse Derry and Cole Palmer on the wings
To
with
start.
João Pedro up front. Yeah, why not?
Okay. Okay. It's a bold
And
move.
so
I like it.
I think Pedro Neto hasn't really done much, and likewise with Garnacho, he hasn't done much for me either.
Yeah. I agree. I agree with this. I think the attacking wise, I think Jesse Derry, I think it's a shame because I was hoping to see him against Brighton at some point. He was on the bench, and I think that's the sort of game. I know the injury maybe meant Garnacho came on a bit earlier, but I think those are the games where, you know, in effect, when you're playing that badly and you're playing five at the back, you got nothing really to lose. I don't know why he didn't come on, but yeah, I think the only thing I would change, I don't know. I don't know. Do I trust the back two of Fafana and Tosin? I don't know. That's the only thing
Uh,
but
when
it's
you've
a
read it back to me now, I'm just a bit like, oof. It's
yeah,
like the Chuckle
yeah,
Brothers all over again,
it
isn't
is,
it?
it is, it literally is. But do you know what I think I would do? I don't think I'd start Fafana. I think I would start Hato.
Chuck.
I know. No, Chalobah. I don't know. I don't think Chalobah's fully fit. I think he's been rushed back in from that injury that he picked up. His ankle was the wrong way. Like his ankle was pointing in the completely wrong direction. And I know that's just like a realignment and all of those things, but that was only like last month, I think, or the month before. That was literally not that long ago. And I'll be honest, I was watching that Brighton game, and he looked very uncomfortable going in for 1v1 tackles. Now, I put that down to he doesn't want to be in the same situation he was a couple of weeks ago. But yeah, yeah, I would probably go with Tosin, Hato. I agree with Achiampong and Cucurella. Lavia didn't wow me against Brighton, so I think Santos, Caicedo, Enzo in the 10, as you said. I've gone with Jesse Derry like you. Cole Palmer is obviously a massive doubt as we're recording this before
True.
the press conference, so we don't know about injury news, but we put Cole Palmer and João Pedro in the team as well. So Leeds, obviously big threat, Calvert-Lewin, Okafor, Aronson, Tanaka's good in the midfield. Ampadu's strength in the midfield will help them. They will play, I think, a back five with the two wing backs, Bogle and Goodmanson, on the left side of that as well. So I think we'll have to be compact, composed. I think they'll probably try and drive us. I don't think they'll sit back in a low block. I think they'll drive us back as much as possible and try and attack us. In my opinion, I don't know if you agree with that before we wrap up.
Yeah, they're gonna, still going into this game technically as the underdogs in terms of the
Yeah.
matchup. So they've got nothing to lose. They're going to give it their all, and they gave us two very difficult games, home and away, this season. So they're going to be right up for it. And all those attacking players you listed, especially Okafor, I think they've also got. He's mainly started off the bench, but Gnonto, I think the young
Gnonto,
Italian guy,
yeah.
who can be quite pacey and quite skillful. So they've got a lot of players with a bit of flair who are going to give our defense some problems. And if we're doing predictions, are we going to be happy Sunday night, or are we going to be heading back down Wembley Way in a sad mood?
It's a tough one. I think we'll win. I just don't know the scoreline. I think sacking Liam Rosenior is probably the best thing to get a win
Yeah.
out of this game. I think you go into that game after Brighton with Liam Rosenior in charge. It's you may as well not turn up. So I think I'm going to go. I think we'll either win like 1-0, or I think we'll have to do it in extra time penalties. I think we'll have to go down that route again. I just don't see us smashing Leeds to bits, unfortunately. What about yourself? What do you think?
I mean, if we score a goal, that's really progress, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, look, no more Titanic sinking, so I'll take it.
No. I'm gonna go weird enough with a 0-0, and then Chelsea score in extra time to make it 1-0.
I'll take it. I'll absolutely take it. And yeah, I mean, yeah, anything better than what we've seen in the last 5 games will improve my mood come this weekend. So I'll take any result. That means it's just Chelsea win. I don't care how we win, penalties, extra time, own goal. I'll take it.
It's probably the only way we're going to score right now. Is
To be fair, I was going to say, yeah, if it's Liam Delap up front, we're going to have to hope the wind blows the ball in the back of the net for us.
Absolutely. But yeah, any Chelsea fans heading to Wembley on Sunday, enjoy it, and hopefully we're all in a good mood heading back down Wembley way full time.
Yeah, let's hope we get the win. Theo, enjoy the game. I'm sure you will. The sun should be shining. Um, I know you're getting ready for your marathon in a couple of weeks, so you might have to zero alcohol the beers if there's any
Yeah.
Sunday. But no, enjoy it. Don't forget to subscribe, like this video. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section as well about what we've discussed as well. Are you happy with the sacking of Liam Rosenior? Let us know all your thoughts in the comments below, and we'll be back next week. Enjoy the weekend.